So, hello and good afternoon. Currently, it's only you two who are already here. So I guess we will wait a bit longer for the participants to be able to log in. Okay, so welcome and good afternoon. I'm not 100% sure how to proceed currently, as we had quite some registrations, actually 45, and only 4 people managed to log in now, so there might be an issue. So I would prefer to wait a bit for allowing others to try to join. Hello and good afternoon. Well, okay. Good afternoon. I think we are going to start, if you do not mind, with today's presentation and today's topic. Perhaps a few other people might join in a bit later. I still think that we could try to start, as our time anyway is limited, and it would be a pity to have waited until the end of time, so to say, and not having started. So as we seem to be a rather small group, I would invite you to, if you want to please just start your videos. I think as you're currently 5 participants, it will be no problem for the bandwidth. So if you want to, you can join in with videos, and also just noting that, of course, as long as we are such a small group as we are currently, it's very easy also to ask questions whenever you want to, and to intervene or to ask whatever or whenever you see fit. Okay, I suggest I start with some introductions. Welcome, nice to have you here, to have you on board. Looking forward for some discussions and a short introduction into the idea of student challenges today. So my name is Beinhauer. I am usually teaching at the University of Applied Sciences in Graz in Austria, and I'm teaching in the program of international management. So my students are business students. I'm teaching both in bachelor and master level. So what I am referring to today is, however, mostly aiming at our bachelor students, with which we do our student challenge. But the idea, of course, can easily be adapted. I am going to use from Zoom, I'm going to use a few tools. I'm going to use the chat. So on the bottom of your screen, you have a button that says chat. I suggest to press it and to open the chat, because I will put my documents and my material there for you to access and to download. So I will start with the presentation that I'm going to use to carry us through this afternoon. And then when I'm going to share material with you, I'm also just going to put it there. So this one is a bit larger, so it takes a bit of time to upload. So should be in the chat. I left it conveniently to PowerPoint. So should you want to use any part of that at a later purpose, you can, of course, simply use the PowerPoint slides for your own needs. So I am going to share my screen for the presentation, and I would invite you to, whenever you want to ask any kind of questions, you can ask questions by typing them in the chat, or you can ask questions by simply raising your hand. Again, here in Zoom, you have a button on the bottom of the screen that allows you to do so under reactions. And then I can ask you to contribute. So, well, just trying to share my screen. That should be here. Share. So, where is it? Here is it. So you should see my screen, right? Does it work? Yes. I see people nodding, so most probably it's turning out to be okay. So, yeah, well, without too much ado, I would say we go into the topic. And the topic, of course, is an idea I want to share with you, which is to use student challenges, to use contests with your students, especially, of course, during times of lockdowns and online during the COVID crisis. Doing the same online can be very helpful to make everything a bit more lively, because as we know, all of us, I think, we had our issues trying to teach online and to get all the things across that we wanted to get across. So just a while ago, now if we think back 2 years, our lecture halls looked something like that. So we had a lot of students sitting in, of course, sharing with us. We could look in their faces and see every time when something works or doesn't work. And we had an easy time in recognizing if what we did actually worked out. No? And then we had our friend coming by and essentially ruining our day. No? So COVID virus struck and essentially sent all of our students back home, leaving us with something like that. So essentially, instead of full classrooms, we ended up on front of a screen, talking to a screen like I do now, no? So hoping to connect and not being able to teach in classrooms as we have been used to. And then, of course, we started to think about what to do. No? So what could we do to make our teaching still interesting to the students? And one of the things that we came up with was the idea of a student challenge. And actually, we were doing the student challenge already before the COVID times. So it wasn't born during COVID, so to say, but we realized that it was also working very well on a purely online mode. So we intensified its use. So thinking about it, or what could be a student challenge, or what do I mean the student challenge? Essentially, in the basic version of things, a student challenge is a contest. So either between individual students who are working on some challenge, some problem, or between student teams to solve more complex issues. So usually also these challenges, they involve some kind of real world problem, meaning that depending on what you teach, of course, you might have people outside your university or perhaps also inside your university who have problems to solve and who could actually profit from the students finding good solutions. Yeah? And of course, if you're talking challenge and if we are talking a contest, we are also talk about winning. So it's a bit of a competition, which is a different situation than most of our normal teaching situations. And that allows us to get a pretty interesting environment. So what we managed to do with the student challenge actually is we break from usual routine, especially if you are teaching online. And if your students are supposed to stick to the screen for several hours in a row, they will be thankful to have a break in that routine. It also allows us to create a real world connection, by getting those real world cases from outside the university and bringing them in. It also teaches the students soft skills that are often difficult to teach, especially if they're working in teams. They need to exchange, they need to work in teams, they need to organize things together. No? Also, a student challenge has the nice option that you can easily block it. So especially if you want to teach in another university, for example, you might only have 1 or 2 weeks of time to go and teach, and you might not be able to do that like, say, 2 hours every week for a whole year. No? Sometimes it's good to have formats that you can easily condense and block. And the next big advantage, especially in COVID times, is that you can grade the whole thing without basing it on exams. Because as we all know, exams, especially online exams, if they are not taken in the university, if they are taken at home, these are really easy to cheat in. And essentially, it's a very unfair environment because those students who learn to cheat best win, and that's not what we want. So essentially, grading not being based on exams, especially not on online exams, is a good thing to have. On the downside, of course, it is a break of the usual routine. So you need to do something in addition to what you are usually doing. So it causes work. There's no talk around that. So it needs preparation time, and you need some connections because you need someone to provide the cases. You will need professors. Probably you will not be able to do it fully alone, depending on the size of your group. But you will need professors who help you in consulting the student groups, because there will be probably many questions by all of the students. The students need to have some time available, so you need to reserve some time. Sometimes it's good to take a student challenge at the beginning or end of semester when courses are either not started or already done for that semester, because otherwise it could get difficult to get the students, give them enough time to work on the cases. And the disadvantage is, of course, that the grading is not based on exams, meaning that you need to read through all of the results and need to get a good impression of the quality of what they did. And that, of course, is much more challenging than running an online Moodle test and looking at the results. No? So letting them do a multiple choice is easier than grading a complex project outcome. So the idea here is that with using this technique, we can address everyday problems, real problems, and the students learn to solve these. And of course, there are multiple possibilities to do student challenges. Now, they could be done in programming. They can be done in different real-world cases. So you have a lot of different possibilities to do cases. But some things always stay the same. No? We need a case or several cases, depending on the size of your student group. We need to prepare those cases in an academically adequate format in order for the students to be able to work on those cases. We need to define the challenge itself and to reserve the time for the students necessary to do it. We will need to have some kind of final event, because in the one or other way, I see I have a few participants I didn't admit. I'm sorry for that. That vanished out of my view. So hello and welcome to those who just joined. Sorry if I did let you wait for a minute or two or even more. I just didn't realize that you were here. So
that's fine.
Hopefully you are
late. It was another session, and that's why I've been late. Sorry for this. And thanks.
Not a problem at all. Nice to have you around and everyone in. Now I leave the participant list open. It was my error not to do that. I'm usually working with MS Teams, and that would like inform me automatically if someone is in the waiting room, which Zoom didn't. So I'm really sorry for letting you hang, so to say. I didn't want to do that. Okay, so perhaps rolling up again, because we're already a bit into the topic. So that's a good time to join actually, because that was just like trying to summarize the main points of a student challenge to be on the same terms. No? So essentially, to do a challenge, we need to acquire the cases. We need to have cases to work upon. We need to prepare those cases in an academically adequate format for the students to work on the cases. And of course, to define the challenge, to reserve the time for the students. We will need some sort of final event, because after all, it's a challenge, it's a competition. A competition should have a winner. A winner should have at least some recognition for having won. And for that, a final event that in a way celebrates the results and celebrates the winners is an important thing. We need to share the results of the challenge. Now, whoever provided the cases we are working upon will want to have the results. So we will need to give back the results. And finally, we will need to grade those results, because after all, it's a university course, and a university course should have a final grade. So how can I, what did I do here? Yeah, now it works. So there are multiple different possibilities of using case challenges, of using competitions with your students. And I am, of course, only presenting one way of doing so. It's not the only way of doing a competition. Perhaps it's not even the best way of doing a competition. I don't know. I'm just trying to show you a working way, because we are doing competitions, student challenges since a while, and that did work well for us. So that's what we did, and that's what I want to share with you. So for a short explanation about my university, FHIAneum is a relatively small university in the center of Austria, in the southern part actually of Austria. We are a university of applied sciences, meaning we teach in a very applied way. So of course the student challenge is fitting nicely to our environment. We do have about 5,000 students all in all, and have a very high teacher-student ratio. So usually we are teaching classes in about 60 people sizes. I'm from the management department, and I'm teaching in the Department of International Management, but we do have, of course, many different programs we are running. And we are only teaching in bachelor and master level, so we do not do PhD. So what do we do when we go for a challenge, for a student challenge? We start by defining the syllabus, because all of our courses need to have a defined syllabus. So of course, also the course that is done with the help of a student challenge. Then we schedule the challenge pretty well ahead. In my case, we are working with year groups. So we do have classes, so to say. So I can block a 1 week's time for the whole class. That's of course very helpful. Might be more difficult for you for doing that same. Then we go for creating the case templates. So how should the cases look like? What do we need to collect to have the cases? With those templates, we go out to case providers, to people who are interested in finding solutions for their questions. I'm going to present some of the things we did, of course, some like real-world documents. Then we define the cases together with the case providers, make sure that the cases work. Then, of course, we need to present the cases to the students. The students work on them for a week. Every day in that week, they have the possibility to consult with the professors. Essentially, they need to consult with the professors, the teams, to find if they are on a good way. Then we do a final event with them. And in that final event, we will define the winners. For every case we have, there will be one winner at the end of the day. All of the results the students produce are, of course, giving back to the case providers. That's their advantage in the whole process. And at the end of the day, we need to grade. So, going through that process in a bit of a short idea, no? So if you have any questions about these, please do not hesitate to ask. No? I think for defining the syllabus, that will probably be different in every university, so it doesn't make too much sense to go into detail here. The challenge will need some time. The students will need to have the possibility to work together for at least some hours, say 30, 40 hours if they are working in a team. So when you are scheduling the thing, you can either schedule it in like several blocks over several weeks, or in a 1 week block, if that's possible in your university. Then these case templates we are using, they need to be prepared way ahead. Now you should have your cases finished rather well before the course is starting, of course. So we are defining those templates in the academic team, and then we go out, in our case, in the business case, to entrepreneurs, asking them for problems they would like to solve, and trying together with them to define those problems, to define those cases in a way that is presentable to the students. I'm giving you some examples in a minute. Then at the kickoff day, that's usually a bit before the challenge itself, we will present those cases to the students. In our case, we will invite the case providers in, the entrepreneurs we use that are working together with us, and they are going to present those cases to the students. And then at that first presentation, they already have the possibility to ask a few questions. So where do you want to go? How should the results look like? What should we focus at? And ask a bit into detail what is the supposed aim of the challenge. Then the students get the student working week. In our case, we just have 1 week blocked for the students in which they work together in teams. They work on these on the questions in teams of 4 to 6 students, and they work on it from Monday to Thursday. And on Friday we have the final event. On Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, we give them consulting sessions. Usually we are working 2 or 3 professors, providing the possibility for the students to do the consulting. So if the students have a question about marketing, they go to the marketing professor. If they have a question about finance, they go to the finance professor. If they have a question about project management, they go to the project management professor. Depending, of course, on the cases you have, you will need different professors for that. And each of these consulting sessions are usually about 30 minutes, and we require the teams to be present at those. That's, of course, up to you, but we want the whole teams to be in the consulting sessions because we actually want to see that everyone is working. And then we will go into the final event where the students will pitch their solutions. That's a typical business thing. Entrepreneurs like pitching. So what we do is we ask the students to have 2-minute presentations, 2-minute collections of their ideas, and to try to sell those ideas to the jury inside 2 minutes. Every team has 2 minutes to make us want to hear more. And those who succeed, those who are the best for each case, they get to do a full presentation of the solution. Usually we select 2 teams per case in order, so to say, to have a small competition between the presentations. And then we select the better of the 2 presentations, and that's the winner. That saves, of course, a lot of time, because if we would let every team present, as we have a rather large group of students working on these, that would take too much time. And then finally, we do the grading, and the grading is done out of 3 parts. 15% of the grade come from the coaching sessions. How well have the students' teams been prepared for the coaching sessions? Did they ask good questions? From the notes of the coaching sessions. The second is the elevator pitch. Also the pitching they did. How good was the pitch? And the third one is a commented presentation, meaning every team prepares, of course, the presentation ahead. And when they are finished, they provide those presentations to the case providers. Okay, that's so to say the basic idea of how we go through that concept. I imagine that most probably, even so it was already a bit more extensive explanation, there will be things open which I didn't explain good enough for you to really get now. So if you have any questions about that process, let me go to the overview slide. If you have any questions about that process, just let me know.
Can I ask you a question, please? My name is
Sure.
Manana. Yeah. So you told us that it takes 15 minutes only to present the first presentation. Yeah, as far as I understood. Do the all team members, are they involved in this presentation, or who is presenting?
It is everything in that challenge is essentially up to the team. So someone will do the pitching and the team is going to select who is doing the best pitches. Someone is going to do the presentations. That might be a single person, that might be a team, that might be the whole team. That depends on the team. They select their approach. So we try to give them as much freedom as possible in that. But of course, you could modify that concept in any way necessary for your environment.
Yeah. Okay. Is it not better to involve all the team members? I mean, for yourself?
It is better for seeing that everyone worked. No? And it's also better to involve everyone in the presentations, as everyone needs to acquire some presentation skills then. But on the other hand, it limits the freedom of the students in trying to do their best. And I am very much in favor in letting them decide.
Ah, okay. Thank you very much.
Any more questions about the general process?
And one more question about case providers, please.
Yeah.
Can you tell me more about the questions or the cases they are providing to the team members? Or
Yeah,
the students?
I of course also brought examples, which I can show you in a minute. No? So that will get clearer.
Okay.
But for us, as I am teaching in the business program, my cases are real world problems entrepreneurs have. So there might be an entrepreneur who wants to acquire a new group of people he wants to successfully sell to. Huh? And then he might look for a good marketing strategy. And that person describes what elements of a marketing strategy he or she is looking for. How should that look like? What elements should it have? And then the students do the best to fulfill those requirements and try to find a good solution. And actually, usually, the entrepreneurs are using it at the end of the day.
Okay. They are looking for their sales providers. Am I right?
They are working for real world people who are presenting their problems to them. So they are essentially consultants. Actually, that's of course always a bit of a risk for the case provider. No? The case provider needs to invest time. Time, especially for an entrepreneur, is very, very valuable. So they are not easily talked into that. But once they see, or once they get that for each of the cases, usually we have 6 to 7 teams working on them. Every team has 4 to 5 students. The students work for about 30 hours on it. So if you start to calculate, you have several hundred to more than 1,000 student hours per problem. And of course, the students are coming up with very good solutions. You cannot easily come up with alone. They are working in teams. They are brilliant young people. And if they brainstorm, they are finding something.
So I think they are doing very good job for the entrepreneurs.
Right.
I think so.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very good deal for the entrepreneurs, actually. And that's why usually we are only providing those services to startups and to people who are either just having an idea and want to realize it, or are in the startup process. Because if we would consult companies for free, the competition would complain. So that's why we usually don't try to do that with established companies. We are staying with the entrepreneurs who are new in the business and need any support any way they can get to get the thing running.
And one more question, please. Do you have the list of entrepreneurs just working with you, or do you?
Essentially, every year we have a topic. Now, so we try to concentrate on something. So this year we will concentrate on sustainability. So our topic will be connected to sustainable ideas. No? And one of the case providers will be a hotel promoting sustainable tourism. Another one is a travel agency doing hiking tours mostly. Yeah, so sustainable tourism ideas is what we are going to do this year. Last year we had single person entrepreneurs who were looking for support on getting the one-man shows up and going. Yeah? And again, the year before we had small companies that were already past the startup phase and now tried to establish a well-working business base for the long run. So we always have a bit of a topic and have several cases we share, because essentially what we do is we take our students from our bachelor program and the incoming students we have for business students and mix them together in teams. Now we have a lot of incoming students, and as we do, we use that to create international teams, which is a lot of fun for them. Okay. Yeah, I want to extend my invitation. Thank you for the questions. Was very good questions. Nice to get a bit into discussion. So everyone who wants to share, please feel free to ask questions.
Thank you.
Should be a masterclass anyway, so we should really have an exchange also on the topic. Okay, let me just take a look on my time. Okay, good. So I brought you some examples in order to get the whole idea perhaps better presentable. So because it's very difficult, of course, to talk about things without like looking at some examples. Starting, of course, with the case template. So you might ask yourself, what do you need to have in order for the students to be able to work on it? I brought you just the current version we are working with. I will share that in a second with you, if it is working. So it will. So first I put the document into the chat so that you have it available. I leave it conveniently in Word. So if you really want to do a case challenge yourself, you can simply take that template and modify it. There's no need to create something from scratch. Just take that one and modify it in any way you need. I'm trying to share the screen and showing you what this is about. So where are we here? Share. So I have a pretty large screen, so probably it's better to scroll in a bit. Okay, so what we do now is, of course, we have the logo of our university on it. It says case challenge. We put in the name of the case here, and the institution, company, social business idea providing the case, whoever is the case provider, and an optional logo of that provider. And then we have the contacts of those providers, and they can check here for those contacts they want to be shared with the students. So the students can also contact them, and those contacts that are only for the professors and for setting up the case in order not to overburden those people who don't want to be interacting with the students directly. That's a pretty important thing we learned. Elsewise, you alienate your contacts pretty fast, because the students will, of course, contact everyone they can. So that's about the challenge. So only those contacts who are definitely agreed to be shared to the students are shared with the students. Then we have a description of our case challenge. So here it is. And here it just says, okay, what is it about? So what is that case challenge? Who is participating? We have about 60 students in the third semester of the bachelor program and 25 to 35 incoming international students. We mix together for a group of around 100. And those roughly 100 students are working in 4 to 6 students on 3 to 4 cases. That's the idea. And then this is what is required as an input. Now, so what do you need as an organization to provide to us to be a potential case provider? So we need the case. We need the case latest until end of September in my case, because the next challenge will start in November. No? So then the entrepreneurs need to present the case at the 8th of November at FHUNU, if COVID-19 allows. So usually we have regional entrepreneurs, no? So people from the region who can easily reach us. If COVID-19 allows, we do it in FHUNU. If not, we do it via MS Teams. Then they have one question and answer session in the middle of the week when the students are working on the case, so that they can ask the case providers specific things only the case providers know. And finally, one jury member should also be joining from the case provider for the final event. So that's the input the case providers need to give to us. What are they getting in return? They are getting 20 to 30 students per case working on the case. That's 800 to 1,200 student working hours, including preparation and presentation of results per case. Meaning that's a lot of hours. When in these hours, someone will have a good idea. Coaching and supervision by the lecturers for each of these teams. That's what you get for free, essentially, if you provide a good case. And that's, as people learned by now, a pretty good deal. So now that we are doing that case challenge since a few years, we easily have enough cases. At the beginning, it was a challenge to find people who want to participate. Now the word spreads, so to say. Wait, what you get is worth the effort. Yeah? And that's why it starts to work pretty well. What do they get? They get the pitches. Each of the team will pitch their solutions. They get presentations of the best 2 teams. And they will get commented presentations. Presentations that are usually just written in PowerPoint. And then the students use the comment section of PowerPoint to explain what is written on that slide, so that the case provider can easily understand what their answers are. And each team also produces a small executive report containing the full methodology and results, which are also moved to or delivered to the case provider. So the case provider knows how they arrived at the results. And then there's the contacts of my colleague, Bojan Jovanovski, and myself. The both of us are doing the case challenge. Bojan is mostly responsible for the incoming students, and I am mostly responsible for our bachelor students. But of course, we share tasks. Everything that I present here today is a cooperation of work between Bojan and myself. So I do not claim to have developed that alone. We did that together. That's an important thing for me. And then the case itself has a section for the backgrounds, in which the companies describe their current status, who they are, what they do, how the whole thing is working. Then they explain what they actually need. What is the actual challenge? What is the actual question? They explain how the answers should look like. So what do they want to get actually? And then they provide an as extensive list as possible of attachments and links of materials the students can work with. Of course, the case providers usually do not manage to do that in an academically adequate level. It's not happening. No? You get a bit of input, and that input is usually, of mixed quality, copied together of different sources, a few notes written. So essentially what happens is you get a whole mess of information. You try to structure it a bit and to produce a good case out of it, send it back to the case providers, let them comment on it again, and then finalize the whole thing. So waiting for the case providers to provide you a full case is hopeless. Yeah, you'll have a lot of work to do until these are real working cases. Yeah. And with that document, with this template, we work in collecting the cases. Are there any questions about that document itself? Do you have any ideas what we could do better?
A few words about feedback, please. Feedback after the work is done.
Yeah, we collect
feedback for providers, case providers, please. Just few words.
Yeah, we collect feedback from several sources. Of course, we have collected feedback of the students, how they fared. We collect feedback of the participating professors and, of course, of the case providers. So usually the case providers get a lot of information. No? They get commented presentations of several teams. And usually they start with the presentation that won, no? And go and read through it and check for ideas, and then flip through the other presentations. The feedback we got until now was thoroughly positive. So the case providers are usually completely overwhelmed by the unexpected quality of answers, because usually they get pretty good answers. Not necessarily by all teams, but some of the teams will provide brilliant answers. We even had in our second case challenge, we had a company that essentially fired their marketing consultants after they were working together with us, because they said, wait, the students delivered much better results than you, and we pay you several thousands of euros, and they did it for free. So that cannot be the solution for the future. Thank you. We are not going to work together with you again. So it depends. But usually there is something in for the case providers. The time they invest is usually paying off. Depends on the complexity of the case. The simpler the case, the better the solutions. That's also something that's a bit of a surprise. The more freedom the students have to answer, the more possibilities they have, the more creative the answers, of course. The more you limit them and the more you demand specifically what you want, the more you just get what you demanded. And that's usually not the full capacity of the students.
One more question, sorry. What are the positions of your, the case providers that are doing the feedback for you? What are they doing in their own institutions? It's very important.
As we are usually working with small companies or with entrepreneurs, usually it's the CEOs, meaning the head of the small companies, that agree to work together with us. And then it might be the boss, him or herself, who is going to do the challenge together with us, or they might point at someone, so to say, and say, could you do that? And could you provide the information? But essentially with entrepreneurs, it only works if the head of the whole thing is really interested in the results. Elsewise, it doesn't make a lot of sense. Elsewise, our first case challenge was with a bit larger companies before we got the advice from our legal department that it might not be wise working for free for companies, because other companies will complain. And also want to have the services for free, which of course we don't want to do. So in our first case challenge, we were working with bigger companies, and with those bigger companies, we were working essentially with the marketing professionals.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's what we go out with. Now that's the sheet we ask the case providers to work upon and to develop together. So for example, currently I'm working with a hotel at a tourism spot in Austria that is providing sustainable tourism office. And essentially we are currently at the status that they are filling out the document. And from time to time they call me and say, I came up with the following idea. Shall I proceed with it? Does it make sense? Can the students do something like that? And then I say yes or no, tweak it a bit. And then they go back to writing. Until now, I didn't get a written case, and I'm really already very interested in how that will end up. The second case provider we are working with, I am working with, Bojan is collecting the other cases. The second case provider I am working with is a company offering hiking tours, essentially. And there, one of the people working at that company is actually an alumni of our university. So that one really knows very, very well how such a case should look like. So I think I will get a pretty good one from that side. It really depends who you are talking to.
Okay, that's a good news, because I'm the head of the bachelor program, Sustainable Mountain Tourism and Hospitality Management.
Oh,
so this is really something very important for me.
We should stay in contact. I'm actually just heading an European Union project about sustainable tourism in India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah.
very interesting. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks.
Thanks. So how does that look like if it's filled? Yeah, I brought you one of the finished. Where do we have it? Here. There's one, actually I brought you two cases, one of last year of a one-man show and one of a social business entrepreneurship we did the year before. I will copy both of them again in the chat for you to download. So, and I'm just going to flip through one of them because I do think that our time is pretty limited. So, I'm again sharing this screen with you. Just need to find out how I'm doing that. Where is it here? And share screen. And now I want to go through that one. So, and that was a company here in Austria that is a social entrepreneurship company. They focus on doing projects with a community focus. And usually those projects, of course, are not win-oriented. So they need support. Well, they need supporting sources, they need money. And what they wanted to know is, how do we get more money? Seemingly very simple question that is not easy to solve if you're a social entrepreneurship in truth. No? The essence of the question was, how can we get more money for our very successful social entrepreneurship project? So this is really a company that actually has won several awards, has been sitting in front of the minister and for social affairs and discussing social projects with him. So they were really very successful, but still, of course, they couldn't somehow finance everything they wanted to do. No? And so they were looking for additional possibilities. And then they explained what Gain and Sustain is. That's the company that we were talking about. So this company is already a bit older. That was about 10 years old when they worked with this. But as it's a social entrepreneurship company, we decided at that date that supporting social entrepreneurship companies for free is also okay. It's good for us. They explained what they do. They explained a few reference projects, what they do, what are the most important projects they are heading. That's written here. Current projects, what they are doing. And then they said, okay, now listen, dear students, now we are a social business, we are a non-governmental organization, we have issues in getting money. And we are looking for new innovative ideas of how to enhance our financial base. So whatever it is you can come up with, no? So it could be crowdfunding, it could be aid from independent foundations, it could be whatever you find that supports us in setting up more or better social entrepreneurship projects that allow us to support our community better is something we are looking for. And what we want to have actually is we want to know how should the portfolio of our organization be designed? What should we present to the public, what we can do? No, because our current website is a mess, so they realized they were not very good at marketing themselves. So they asked the students, what should we do to be better recognizable as successful? Where could we either as a for-profit or for non-profit organization get financial support from the private sector to implement our projects? Or which alternatives for getting co-financing for our projects do we have as win-oriented or not win-oriented company from regional, national, European sources? What can you find? Huh? And then they described that they would like to have answers that they can actually work with. So preferably, they would like to have something like, we the students were talking with this foundation and they said your projects are fitting well. The contact number and the contact person of that foundation is, you could phone them during these weekdays. So very concrete answers and concrete suggestions of what to do, nothing fluffy. Yeah? That's what they wanted and that's what they wrote in. And then they gave a good assortment of lists of links for the students to start getting into the issue, because the students, of course, they are not social entrepreneurs. So they need first to learn about what the topic is about before they are able to find solutions. And that was one of the cases we used. So now what's happening with those cases? What is an outcome of such a case challenge? I also brought you examples for these that you know. For the same cases I now presented, I also brought you results now in order for you to see how that could be working. Where's my chat here? Oh, come on, just copied it. Let's move it so. So, okay, you should have gotten it in the chat. Yeah. So these are results of group 3 or group 6. Now I'm sticking with gain and sustain. You can look at the other examples for yourself if you are interested. And that's now the commented presentation the students were doing for that case. So the student said, okay, let's look at what you could do. They developed a social media presence. They said, okay, what can you do for getting crowdfunding? How should your website be improved? What are corporate social responsibility strategies you can take advantage of? And which alternative funding possibilities did we find? And then they started to explain all of that. They said, okay, for the social media presence, what do you need to do? And wait, how can I see the notes here? It's not a PowerPoint slide. I'm not sure how I can show you the notes of what the students did. Give me a second. Oh, okay, perhaps they are not copied in that document. Anyway, the original PowerPoint they commented all of that, all of what they did here in a relatively a relatively exact way. So they also wrote or explained what they did. Then they said, okay, social media theory, with what background are we working with? Then self-promotion, so explore visual media marketing strategies. What do you need to do? Make them more eye-catching, use customers' testimonials, create testimonials of your own, of your customers and the people who were working successful in projects with you, use a color scheme, put that one nicely online, create a Facebook a Facebook page and Instagram page to display those. And they explained pretty well the steps they need to do to actually do that. So they didn't just say use Instagram. They said, okay, if you want to set up an Instagram page, this is a good explanation of how you can do it yourself. There's a good video that explains how this is done. That is a good company that could do it for you if you're looking for experts who are supporting you. No? So that's what they commented in the commenting section there. Then they said, okay, how about crowdfunding? They presented so possibilities of crowdfunding, what needs to be done, updates of the projects they were doing, sharing the success they have, and also inviting people in to support other of their projects in crowdfunding platforms. They, of course, again explained how the crowdfunding platforms are working, which crowdfunding platform they could click at, and so on. And then they were looking at the website, said, okay, what improvements would we suggest that are really important? And finally, you could offer an additional service to companies, helping those companies improve their corporate social responsibility strategies. And with these finding strategic partners that help you supporting your programs, you could go to Amazon Smile. I don't know if you heard about Amazon Smile. They are also supporting social entrepreneurship programs. You can get in there for free. You can organize fundraising events. And all of that was, again, explained of how that is done. And that was like one folder that they produced for them and said, okay, that's how we think something like that could look like. Not professional, just on a PowerPoint slide, but that's what could be on it. And then they were looking at alternative funding possibilities. And for each of those funding possibilities, they provided a link and a phone number and said, okay, go there, phone there, you'll find additional possibilities. Sorry for just having copied the PDF. In the PDF, the comments are not written, which is a bit of a nuisance, but well, I guess you get the idea. And then that's the result the case providers get, together with a bit of a report where the students explain how they arrived at those results and what methods they were using. And if we, the professors, feedback of all of those results together. So if 6 groups are working on the case, we grab all of those results, make a nice package out of it, send it to the case providers. And as we, of course, also need to grade it anyway ourselves, we can already point the case providers at which presentation they shouldn't miss, because it's really good. And you should really start with this one, because there are really great ideas in that, and don't miss them. But for that weakest one, now that at the other end of the scale, so to say, it's probably enough if you look at the page 5 and 6, because everything else has been said somewhere else. So that's how we can also support them in not needing to read through all of the slides. And what happens is, as I said, that at the beginning we were pretty hard pressed to find people who wanted to participate. By now we ended up in having a bit of a renommee, meaning the results are worth something. And we also have a few people we can refer our potential case providers too. No? So we can say, if you don't believe us, ask those case providers who are already working with us. And that's, of course, helpful. The first run is, I think, always the most difficult, because then essentially you need to find someone a bit more daring who is willing to do something new. Okay. Any questions? Elsewise, I would have a few finishing remarks, but I don't want to do finishing remarks if you still have questions.
I had so many questions.
Well, my email is, I think, written at these slides. Is it? No, it's actually not. I see. My email is my email is this one. If you really think about doing a case challenge yourself and would like to connect, do not hesitate to do so. I'm always happy to share. And actually, if you're somehow connected to business, we could even consider if we can share a challenge. You know? So meaning your students are working on a case, my students are working on a case, and then we see who's getting the more interesting results. Could be very interesting for the students. Or use similar cases and compare the results, or anything like that. So if you like working together and if you want to share, just drop me an email. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome. So I would really be happy to share. So do not hesitate. You're really invited. That's
in tourism somehow. Sustainability in tourism. I'm very, very interested in it.
Yeah, we can also exchange on the tourism project. I'm of course more from the business side, so to say. But my colleague who is working more on the sustainable tourism side will of course be very interested also to share with you. We can always meet.
Yeah, you have my email, and you have my, I hope you have everything. So, well, yeah, welcome. I'm waiting for your, yeah.
Great.
Working together. Thank you very much. Thanks. Thanks. It was really, really very nice. Nice to meet you.
So, then if you have a few seconds left, I'm just going to say one word to online and offline, because after all, I was trying to sell you that as an offline, as an online solutions, no? Yeah. I was just wanting to point out that that whole process of doing that challenge can be nearly as well be done online than offline. If you're doing it in an online setting, you just need to move the case presentations by the providers to an online method. To do the team building online, which is a bit of a challenge, thinking about good ideas of how getting the teams together. Do the consulting sessions online and the final event, but actually all of those can be done rather well. So as time has already progressed past the time we should have finished, I suggest to leave it with that. And if you have any questions, any ideas, and want to know anything more, you have my email and can always connect with me.
Thank you. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you very much. One last word on the recording. You hopefully realized that this session is going to be recorded. Anyway, it says so when you join in, and you also were informed when clicking the button to participate. We are probably not going to share it on a wide audience, but if there are people who have registered today and couldn't come out of whatever reason and are requesting to be able to look at that video, I would like to share it. So if any one of you has objections in that still, please use the opportunity to just let me know.
Thanks.
Then I consider it okay to share. Okay, thank you. Have a nice day.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you
Goodbye.
very much.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. It was nice to meet you.
Thank you.